Brandon, buddy, stay on the phone, okay? I'm almost to the old Miller farm. Just keep talking to me. Can you still see those lights?
Yeah, I think so. Stay on the line, Brandon. I know you're scared. Just keep talking to me, okay?
I'm trying, Dad. I still can't see anyone. I only see that old farmhouse way out there. I think I'm almost there.
Don't leave the road. Just keep walking straight. I'll find you.
Okay, I'm staying on the road.
You're doing great. Just keep talking to me. Can you still see the farmhouse?
Yeah, I can still see it.
Good. Just keep walking. I'm getting closer.
Hang on, I thought I heard something.
What do you hear?
I'm not sure. Give me a second.
Oh, shit.
The boy's name was Brandon Swanson. He was 19 years old. He has never been found. Not a body, not a bone, not a shoe, not a wallet, not a single confirmed trace of him anywhere in 18 years of searching across more than 100 square miles of Minnesota farmland. This is not a story about how Brandon Swanson died. Nobody can tell you that story because nobody knows. This is a story about the last 47 minutes anyone can prove he was alive, and everything investigators, search teams, and his own family have tried to piece together since. Marshall, Minnesota, population around 13,000. The kind of town where everybody's a few connections removed from everybody else. Brandon grew up here, the older of two kids, close with his parents, Brian and Annette. Friends who knew him described the same person over and over across more than a decade of interviews. Grounded, responsible, not the kid you'd expect to vanish. In the spring of 2008, he'd just finished a one-year program at Minnesota West Community and Technical College, training to work on wind turbines. May 13th was his last day of class. This case remains open today. No body, no suspect, 18+ years later. That night, he did what a lot of 19-year-olds do on the last day of the semester. He went out. Two different gatherings, both in the town of Canby, both marking the end of the year. People who saw him that night say he was drinking. They also say he didn't seem drunk. Not stumbling, not slurring, just a guy having a normal night with friends before driving the 30 miles home. He never made it. Here is where the story stops being ordinary. Sometime around 2 in the morning on a gravel back road instead of the main highway, Brandon's car slides off into a ditch. Not a crash, not a rollover. The car gets what's called high-centered, hung up on an incline, wheels spinning in the air, no real damage to the vehicle at all. He's not hurt, he's just stuck. So he calls his parents, tells them exactly what you'd want your kid to tell you in that situation. I'm okay, the car's in a ditch, come get me. He tells them he thinks he's near a small town called Lind, just a few miles outside Marshall.
Brian and Annette get in the truck. They start driving toward Lind, staying on the phone with their son the entire time. At some point, they try something simple. They'll flash their headlights, and Brandon will look for them, and he'll flash his own lights back. Neither one of them sees a thing. Not because it's too dark, not because they're looking in the wrong spot on the same road, because they are roughly 25 miles apart. Brandon believed he was near Lind. He was actually near a town called Taunton, in almost the opposite direction. A discrepancy nobody understood in the moment because nobody knew about it yet. His parents wouldn't find out how far off he really was until cell phone records were pulled the next day. Somewhere in that misunderstanding, that impossible gap between where he thought he was and where he actually stood, Brandon decides the car isn't going anywhere, and neither is help. He tells his dad he sees lights in the distance. He thinks it's Lind. He starts walking toward them. He tells his father to go wait in a bar parking lot in town. Keeps talking as he walks, mentions passing some fences, says he can hear water somewhere nearby. And 47 minutes into the call, oh shit. then silence. By 6:30 that morning, Brian and Annette still have no son and no idea where he actually is. They call the Lind police to report him missing. And here is a detail that will change Minnesota law within a year. The first response they get is that this isn't unusual. A young guy, last night of the semester, probably just needs to sleep it off somewhere. Annette would later recall an officer telling her it was her son's right to be missing. She knew immediately that wasn't right. A mother's certainty against a system built to assume the most boring explanation first. It takes hours before that changes. Eventually, Lyon County Sheriff's deputies pull Brandon's cell phone records, and that's when the actual geography of that night falls apart. The call hadn't come from anywhere near Lind. It had come from near Taunton on Highway 68. 25 miles away, in the opposite direction his parents had been driving all night. Searching that new area, deputies find Brandon's car, abandoned, in a ditch, off a gravel road right on the line between Lincoln and Lyon counties. The doors are open, the keys are gone. No blood, no damage beyond the high centering itself, no sign of a struggle. And because the ground around the car is just grass and gravel, there isn't a single footprint or tire mark to tell anyone which direction Brandon walked when he left it. 3 counties, 1 missing teenager, and at that point, absolutely no physical trail to follow. What they do have is a phone. Investigators trace the call to a cell tower at the intersection of 2 county roads near the town of Minneota. By the next day, they've narrowed things down to a 5-mile radius around that tower, which happens to stretch into a 3rd county, Yellow Medicine, pulling in yet another jurisdiction. The sheriff at the time, Joel Dahl, has a theory about the 25-mile mix-up. From out in that area, there's a red light on top of a grain elevator in Taunton, visible for miles at night. Dahl's theory is that Brandon may have seen that red light and mistaken it for the town of Lind, enough to convince a disoriented 19-year-old in the pitch dark that home was just a short walk away. It's a theory. Nobody can prove it. But it's the only explanation anyone has ever offered for how a sober enough, clear-headed kid could be that far off about his own location. And Brandon Swanson has always pushed back on one part of this story. In interview after interview, he said the same thing. Brandon did not sound drunk, did not sound confused. Right up until, oh shit, his son sounded like someone calmly walking toward help, which makes the ending even harder to explain. With the car found and the search area narrowed, investigators bring in tracking dogs, bloodhounds in fact, from as far away as South Dakota. One dog picks up a scent, follows it nearly 3 miles, across field roads, past an abandoned farm, straight to the banks of the Yellow Medicine River. And there, the trail appears to go into the water. That's the moment the case's dominant theory is born. Brandon fell into the river in the dark and never came back out. It's not an unreasonable theory. He'd mentioned hearing water. The river that spring was running high and fast, in places over 10 feet deep. A misplaced step on a steep, unlit riverbank at 2 in the morning after a few drinks? Investigators don't need much imagination to picture it. But here's where the story does something most true crime cases never do. A second dog runs the same general area and finds a trail that doesn't end at the river at all. It crosses the water, continues along the far bank, follows another gravel road north, and only then goes cold. 2 dogs, 2 different endings to the same walk. Annette Swanson has said publicly more than once she does not believe her son drowned in that river, not because of hope, because of that second trail. And there's a second problem with the drowning theory that almost never makes it into shorter retellings of this case. By most accounts, Brandon's cell phone stayed on, ringing through to voicemail for roughly 2 more days after that final call. A phone that goes into a fast-moving river at 2 a.m. typically doesn't keep functioning like that. So which is it? Did he go into the river, or did something happen on the other side of it? 18 years later, nobody has an answer. What followed is one of the longest, most methodical search efforts for a missing person in Minnesota's history. Ground teams, aerial flyovers, horses, all-terrain vehicles, boats from the state's Department of Natural Resources working the river itself. Sheriff Jack Mazecki, whose county had jurisdiction over where the car was found, personally walked a 2-mile stretch of that river every single day for 30 days after the main search wound down. The search didn't stop after those first weeks. It came back that fall, once the harvest cleared fields that had blocked ground crews all summer. It came back the next spring and the spring after that. By 2011, searchers had covered something like 120 square miles of Minnesota farmland. By some more recent counts, the total area of interest has grown past 140. In 2010, cadaver dogs picked up a scent near a different waterway, Mud Creek, shifting the search's center of gravity there for years. Search managers Jeff Hassey and Ken Anderson, neither of them paid for a minute of this work, have kept records so precise that their search logs now include more than 1,500 separate GPS tracks of personnel and dogs. Not so they can prove where Brandon went, so that if he's ever found, they'll know exactly which ground has already been covered and by whom. In 2015, on the 9th anniversary of his disappearance, anthropology students from Hamline University helped sift soil in a field between 2 of the towns involved, working off another dog indication. Nothing definitive turned up. And in 2021, a drought did something 13 years of searching hadn't managed. It dried the Yellow Medicine River down to its bed. For the first time, search crews could excavate ground that had always been underwater. They found nothing there either. So what actually explains this? There are, realistically, 3 theories that carry any real weight. The first is the river. Supporting it, the mention of water, the final exclamation.
The first dog's trail ending right at the bank, a steep drop-off that a reporter who visited the site years later described as easy to miss in full darkness. Against it, no body has ever surfaced, despite a fast-moving river that should carry remains downstream eventually. A phone that reportedly worked for 2 more days, and that second dog crossing to the other side. The second is an accident somewhere on land. A fall, an injury, exposure to the cold and open farmland at night. It fits the terrain. It fits a disoriented walk through unfamiliar fields in pitch darkness. What it doesn't fit is the scale of the search that followed. 140 square miles, professional cadaver dogs, 13 years of effort, and not one confirmed piece of physical evidence anywhere on that land. The third is foul play. Sheriff Mazecki, for his part, has never ruled it out. He's speculated on the record that someone could have been in the shadows that night. But there is no evidence to back that up. No named suspect ever. No motive. No sign of a struggle at the car. No witness reporting another vehicle, another person, anything at all. It stays open as a possibility mainly because investigators have never been able to close the door on it, not because anything points toward it. A fourth idea gets raised sometimes online, that Brandon walked away from his own life on purpose. It doesn't hold up. He had no money, no ID, no vehicle. He'd just finished a program with plans to keep building on it. And this case made statewide, then national news within days. Staying hidden afterward would have meant staying hidden from a story that wouldn't stop being told. None of the three real theories fully fit everything we know. That's not a failure of storytelling. That's the actual, honest shape of this case. What Brandon's disappearance did do, with total certainty, no theory required, is change the law. The response his parents got that first morning, being told it was their son's right to be missing, became the argument for something called Brandon's Law. It's a small change on paper, one word really, swapping child for person in an existing statute that already required police to move fast on missing child cases. After 2009, Minnesota law enforcement could no longer treat a missing adult's case as automatically less urgent. It wasn't an easy bill to pass. Lawmakers who worked on it have said the resistance mostly came down to cell phone privacy. The technology to track a phone's location was still new enough in 2008 and 2009 that there were real, unresolved questions about when police could use it without a warrant. It passed anyway, unanimously in the Minnesota House. Governor Tim Pawlenty signed it into law in May of 2009, with Brian, Annette, and their daughter standing there when he did. Since then, at least 4 other states have passed some version of the same law. Annette Swanson has said, more than once, that she knew this law would never bring her own son home. She pursued it anyway, because it might help someone else's. For at least 5 years after Brandon disappeared, his parents left the porch light on at their house every single night. Not as a symbol for anyone else's benefit, just in case. Before we close this out, one thing needs to be said plainly because it matters. In the last couple of years, a version of this case has spread online that includes a supposed 911 call, a redacted transcript, even gunshot-like sounds captured on tape. It sounds compelling. It also does not exist anywhere in the actual record of this case. Not in any court document, not in any statement from the sheriffs or the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, not in any of the original reporting going back to 2008. That's worth knowing because it's a reminder of something bigger than this one case. Real unsolved mysteries don't need invented evidence to stay disturbing. This one never did. As of the most recent reporting available, the case remains open. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is still the lead agency. There has never been an arrest. There has never been a named suspect. Tips still come in occasionally, including a fresh wave after the case was covered on a popular true crime podcast years later. None of them have led anywhere yet. 18 years, 140 square miles, 1,500 search logs, and still, somewhere out there, an answer nobody has found. Go back to that phone call for a second. 47 minutes of a father listening to his son walk through the dark, both of them thinking help was close. Oh shit. 2 words, and then a silence that has now lasted 18 years. Nobody knows what Brandon Swanson saw in that last second before the line went dead. Not his parents, not the sheriffs who've worked this case since 2008. Not the search teams who have covered more ground than almost any missing person search in Minnesota history.
So here's the question this case leaves behind, the one nobody has ever been able to answer. In that instant, whatever it was that made a calm, sober, clear-headed young man suddenly say, "Oh shit," in the middle of an empty field, 25 miles from where he believed he was. What did Brandon Swanson see? 18 years later, no one knows. The call ended. The mystery never did.